Welcome in to Coffee Conversations. My name's Josh.
I'm Anna.
And we're so glad you can join us for these conversations over said coffee. I've got my Proud of My Kids mug. And we've got our Proud of Our Country
Team
mug
USA.
Team USA.
You know, this is officially from the Olympics, Rio 2016. I bought it during that time from the Team USA shop.
A little disappointed you didn't go with Team Azerbaijan or Bijan, however you say it.
Well, another year.
Another year, another time. It's time. Anywho, also happening during this Olympic time.
Yes.
We had our friend Bob Shetler.
We did.
This past Sunday.
Yes.
And Bob is a good friend of mine and also many people in our church. He was here for 19 years.
Wow. Yeah.
As a youth and a million other things pastor at some point. I always hear these stories about he was always up at Edgewater doing stuff and around, and he tells funny stories about taking 100 kids on a trip up somewhere. And
wow, yeah,
it was just funny stuff,
Yeah.
And, so it was good to be able to hear from him. He was the former pastor at First Presbyterian Church in Gainesville.
Okay.
Although he's quick to say, he's from Kentucky, so he says, I like Gators. They need Jesus a lot, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's good to have him with us. Give people a chance to hear a real pastor, right? So I was interested in your take on what he was saying, like kind of what landed with you, and what made you think, or what made you go, that's awesome, or whatever. What really kind of resonated with you?
Yeah, so he talked about the song Drift Away, which someone beside me was like, oh, we're singing Uncle Cracker. And I was like, no, but that's how I knew it too, but it's not, he was not the original one that sang that. But I liked how he took this idea of how have we as a society drifted away from what God has called us to?
Right.
And what does that personally look like? I thought that was good to say, okay, maybe this is what this looks like, but how have I drifted away from what God has said first? Or how do and I kept thinking about how do I, let things get in the way of my relationship with the Lord? Or even just let things go first instead of seeking Him first. And just how many times do I get distracted with other things or drift away in a way? And it was a good reminder to me to think about what are those things that are in place that maybe need to change so I'm not drifting the way that...
Which is an important piece, right? Because generally speaking, these things don't happen overnight.
Exactly.
It's a drift.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a drift. So much of this stuff happens in a drift because it's sneaky like that. Like we're able to fight off the big stuff. Mm-hmm. It's the little stuff. I used to tell people all the time, especially as a youth pastor, you got to watch. The little stuff matters,
right?
Because that's where you start to give in. You don't give in on the big stuff,
right? Yeah.
We all know, the big stuff. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But the little stuff.
The little stuff that's building up to get to that big thing. I'm okay with this, and then next week I might be okay with this, and then next week I'll be okay with that, and then you realize. You're right. You look back and see how far have I drifted away from what God has said first.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure.
Right. So I think, that for me conjures up ideas around how do I keep myself from drifting? Mm-hmm. How do I keep that from happening? Mm-hmm. And so in my life, I don't know about yours, but in my life, that's meant I have to set up boundaries that I will not cross.
Right.
Right. So little things that I put in place just to correct. So, pardon the expression, but maybe guardrails.
Right.
Little guardrails that I go, right here. We're not gonna go past this over here. Right? Mm-hmm. No matter what, I'm not going past that thing there. Mm-hmm. And so our mind, I think, goes to the big sins of church, right? Mm-hmm. But the sex, the drugs, all of that. But I think about friends who've struggled with alcoholism, or just maybe they wouldn't call themselves an alcoholic, but they were drinking too much, and they realized it, and they said, "Okay, I've got to do something about this."
Yes, yeah.
I've got to do something about this because some churches Some Christians, alcohol is totally fine.
Right.
And we're one of those churches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's fine. We're not going to come after anybody for that.
Right.
But there was a time in this church, and there's still a time in a lot of churches where alcohol is a big no-no.
Yes.
Big no-no. And I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I understand how you can read scripture or live your Christian life and come to that conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
But for those like us who don't really see a huge issue with alcohol, like what are some things we put in place? And so one of the things I've talked with friends about with that is they won't have it in their homes.
Yeah.
Like I only ever drink when I'm out with friends, and even then I draw the line at 2.
Right.
Or whatever it is. And if I drink, my spouse does not, or we show up with an Uber because we don't even want to get remotely close to anything that would dishonor God, like a DUI or something.
Right.
What are some things, I'm sure it didn't have to be alcohol, of course, but like I know there's things in your life where you're probably have to set up boundaries in different areas. Maybe it's with friendships or other things.
Mm-hmm.
What are some boundaries like you've had to put in place in your life, or maybe you counseled others to put it in place in their life before?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I always think about social media is like the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh.
And I have found like moments where I'm like scrolling all the time. A lot of times that like I can tell within myself that I'm not as happy, or just like I can just tell a difference in myself from spending a ton of time on social media. And so on your phones, you have like the time limits that you can put on there. And I've done that before. Like all my apps turn off at 9:30 at night and they come back on at 8 a.m. because then I'm not like staying up super late, just like constantly scrolling. Now, of course, you can like click on it. And it's like, do you want to like look for 15 more minutes? And you have to consciously say yes, but it's helped me to like put a boundary in place of like, I don't need to be looking at stuff this late at night, or I just don't need to be spending that much time on things. So that's been something. I mean, my phone goes on do not disturb a lot of nights too, and that's been helpful too. I think that's built some boundaries with like students in the past to know like, hey, like I'm here for you and I love you, and absolutely if it's an emergency, like call me twice because it'll go through. But sometimes like there needs to be a boundary too that says like, hey, like I'm not available all the time just to chat, because I need to step away too. I need to have those moments. So everything I just said has to do with my phone, but I feel like that's a lot of...
Our phones are pretty central.
They're a lot. They really are, yes. And I think like my phone, and like it's been before where that's those little tiny spots where I'm like, well, if I just, spend this much time on this, and then it's like next week it's a little bit more time. And I see how it starts to just add up as I start to drift away.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because I just got back from vacation not too long ago. And when I go on vacation, our whole staff knows I turn my phone off. And I say, if it's an emergency, you got to call Camille.
Yeah.
And because she won't turn her phone off. She's like, no way, man. No. But my phone is off. It's put away somewhere. Like, literally, I'm not looking at anything. And I do that because my brain is just going with church and the world stuff and everything out there. And so if I don't turn my phone off, that happens. And I noticed something on this vacation that, like, I was spending more time with my kids because my phone was off. Like, I was engaged in what they were doing and in the questions they were asking. And I'm ashamed, I think, a little bit to say, it drew a line in the sand for me that I've got to start putting my phone away.
Right.
Not just do not disturb, although I do that every night.
Right.
But I've got to put it away when my children are around, because I only got so many hours with them.
Yeah.
And you only have so many weeks and so many years with them as kids.
Right.
So I've made this determination that I've got to put my phone away.
Yeah.
I've got to.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, I'm going to drift back in. I can say all I want. I'm just going to put it over here.
Right.
And and I'll, limit myself. I know I won't.
Right.
I'm the one who clicks, yeah, give me 15 more minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And then it's like 2 hours later.
Yeah, I'm definitely that guy.
Oh, yeah.
But if I put it away and it's out of sight, out of mind, I'm a little bit. I've made this determination. I've got to start doing this for the sake of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And our phones are so central to our life. But
right.
I'm glad you brought it up because so many of us struggle in that area,
mm-hmm.
and it affects, I think, our mental health a little bit. I think on top of those things, it's also a symbol or even a metaphor for other things in our life, or maybe just a placeholder for other things in our life too, where like I'm spending too much time doing this, or I'm spending too much time doing that, and if I don't set a significant boundary,
right,
I'm going to go this direction.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to people who, like me, are going to hit that 15-minute button, right? Like,
yeah,
whether it's on the phone or other things in life,
right.
who really struggle to stay within those boundaries they set for themselves. What kind of advice would you give someone like me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think tell somebody else that you're doing that. I mean, just to say like, hey, I struggle with this, and so someone else knows, and so they can say, hey, how long have you looked at your phone today? Or, hey, have you done this? Like, to have some type of accountability with others, I think is really helpful. I think too, like, I mean, there's moments where I just have to pray about it and be like, okay, God, I know maybe it seems trivial to me to be like, God, help me not be on my phone. But no, like, that's like to allow him to be a part of that. Like, help me not to be on my phone as much, and to actually acknowledge, like, I cannot do this on my own because I know it could be an addiction with it. Like, I need help to allow the Lord to be a part of that. So to tell other people, to allow the Lord to be a part of it. And I think you're right, like, to physically put something away, like, or to not be in that, like, to remove yourself from a situation, whatever that may be, like, to not be in that situation where something might help you drift away. Like, okay, I've got to physically remove myself, or physically put my phone away, or say no to an invitation to do something, whatever it looks like. I have to make that conscious choice.
I think that's so right, because when it comes to relationships especially, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've talked with somebody in church life, and I said, what if you just didn't go there?
Right. Yeah.
What if you just decided you're not going to be around that person? You're just not going, well, I don't want to hurt any feelings. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
You got to do what's right.
Right.
And you've got to remove that sort of. One thing I would add on to that, when you talk to somebody and you have that kind of accountability, I would just also say, be prepared to be annoyed by the person you've told.
So true. Right? Yes. Yeah.
Be prepared to be mad at them.
Yes.
My wife, man, like Camille will hold me accountable on stuff, like especially around with the girls, and she goes, "You need to put your phone away and be present." And I'm like, "Leave me alone." Like, that's my first thing. Leave me alone. I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
I got people need me to talk to them. I just got to do this.
Yeah. And
the truth is, she's right.
Right.
She's just holding me to the standard I set for myself. I think that's true. We've got to be prepared to be annoyed and to catch that and go, okay, they're right, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, okay. I did ask them.
Yes.
To hold me accountable.
And for a reason.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
absolutely
talking with me about Dobie Gray, Drift Away, and our friend Bob Shetler.
There you go.
Until next time, we'll see you on Coffee Conversations then. Bye.
Bye.